How's it going? My name's Bradley with Allaqcess Sports, bringing you another edition of our sleepers, studs, and stacks, where we're going to talk about guys under $5,500 that you can put into your lineup and get big returns with. Those high-priced guys, the guys that you need to get into your lineup and are actually going to pay off because you can't afford to miss on an $8,000 player. And finally, our stacks. What quarterback wide receiver combinations can you put into your lineup and expect big returns with? We get into all of that as we go through position by position and then ultimately build a lineup at the end of the video. It's not necessarily the lineup that I'm going to enter, but it's the guys that we talked about within this video. And if you've been here before, I appreciate you coming back into the Allaqcess Lounge. And if it's your first time here and you find anything valuable or you enjoy the video at any point in time, consider giving it a thumbs up and subscribing to the channel so you never miss another one. I know you don't like to hear me ramble, so let's get into the video. Starting things off at the quarterback position, under $5,500. Now, it's kind of an interesting position because there's not a whole lot to love under $5,500. Normally, Matthew Stafford being down here is kind of surprising, but I know he doesn't have a lot of weapons. He has limited weapons with him. Green Bay is going to score, so he's going to have to throw the ball. But yes, Kyren Williams is still going to get into the end zone. Joe Flacco, if he starts over Anthony Richardson, I think that is a real one I would consider. We are not going to be riding the Andy Dalton train for a third week in a row. I know we talked about it 2 weeks ago at 27. I said last week he'd be in the 15 to 18 point range. I don't know if we're going to get that same result against a better than average Chicago passing defense. So what I'm saying is only really interested in Joe Flacco if he's the starter against a 31st ranked Jacksonville Jaguars passing defense, or possibly Deshaun Watson? No, that can't be right. No, I'm serious. Against a Washington defense that ranks 21st against the pass, I think they're actually worse than their ranking shows. We saw the performance that the Bengals put on against them 2 weeks ago. I would consider Deshaun Watson. I don't love it. Certainly not going to play it. But if you want to be really different, I guess Deshaun at 5,300 is kind of interesting. He did have an 80-yard touchdown, potentially, to Amari Cooper called back because of a holding penalty. At the top of the quarterback position, Josh Allen at $7,700 is the most expensive quarterback. We had a 32, a 9-point performance, a 30, and an 8-point performance. Do we come back with another 30-point performance against a Houston Texans team that is pretty good? We know they can generate pressure. We know they cover wide receivers well. I think it kind of puts Josh Allen in a tough spot with no Khalil Shakir. It only means his legs are going to be used even more. James Cook's going to get involved. But a limited passing option, I think there's some better value a little bit lower. Lamar Jackson against Cincinnati, I would prefer at $200 cheaper. This Cincinnati defense cannot stop anyone against the run. They can't really get off the field. Their offense looks better, which helps give them defense some breathers. But Lamar Jackson has been getting it done both with his arm and with his legs. You see at least one touchdown in every single game thus far this season. King Henry, we know he's going to get used. Mark Andrews is just essentially an extra blocker at this point in time. Lamar Jackson, 7,500, probably the highest quarterback I'm willing to go this week. Again, we mentioned Anthony Richardson getting it done with his legs. Geno Smith, watch out for that DK Metcalf injury news going up against the New York Giants. I think he's certainly in for another big game. Brock Purdy against Arizona. We saw what Jane Daniels did against them last week. I think that's a good play. But the one that I absolutely love is going to be Jordan Love. I know a lot of people are already talking about him, so it's not anything new to you. But Jordan Love in this one without Christian Watson, I still like him with Jaden Reed, Dontavian Wicks, Bo Melton. We might even just throw Tucker Kraft in there. So I understand people wanting to go after Josh Jacobs in this one. I really do. He should be in line to have a very, very strong game as well. But Jordan Love, when healthy, has been absolutely dealing. 17 points week 1, 34 points week 2. He had the advantage of having a short field later on in the game with a turnover. It was a fumble by the Vikings and an interception by Sam Darnold to let them get back in the game. So before that, he wasn't having a spectacular game. But at $6,500 going up against, again, this LA Rams defense, I'm going to take my shot with Jordan Love. Now, I know I kind of give you opinion-based things, but we just like to talk ball on this channel. If you want real hard-hitting facts where you can just look at the analytics on your own, I could not recommend Rotowire enough. Thanks to my partnership with GDC, you are getting full access, no payment required, no credit card on file required or anything like that. You get full access to the Rotowire website down in the description below. And I don't mean you get like a couple of articles, a couple over-unders, some Vegas things, a partial view of the lineup optimizer. No. You get access to everything on the website. It's where I get most of my information. It's how I get a lot of my stats and statisticians. So DFS, you see everything on the screen you'll have access to, including their optimizers, MLB DFS now that we're in playoffs, the NFL, most importantly, over here on the left-hand right-hand side, including roster projections, starting lineups, inactives, weather, and so much more. And shout out to those of you that have already used it. Fielder hit me up on Twitter letting me know that he used Rotowire. He basically found the biggest discrepancies in the projections and the Vegas lines on Prize Picks, and he went and made himself an 8-part play where he turned $5 into $500. I mean, there's some good plays on here, and it looks kind of obvious looking back on it, and he absolutely smashed just because of Rotowire. If you want to see the full landscape of things and not just me talk about it, sign up down with the link below in the description. Literally, what do you have to lose? It's free. Running backs below $5,500, and I know most people want to talk about Trey Sermon here at $5,700. We'll get to him in a second, but you already know about it. Jonathan Taylor ruled out Trey Sermon. Certainly a good play against a busted Jaguars defense. No Allaqcess in the middle of that field, by the way. So elsewhere, where are we looking? If Joe Mixon is not able to go in this one at $5,500 going up against a Buffalo defense who I thought was playing better against the run than they actually were, I would strongly consider this. Again, as long as this game is competitive, which I fully expect it to be, they rank 30th against the run. I thought Big Ed Oliver up the middle, Damian Williams on the outside coming in to replace Matt Milano. I thought this defense was still going to be pretty stout against the run. Well, thus far, they're trying to shut down the pass and allowing a lot of yards. See Derrick Henry's performance from last week. The problem is we kind of need him to fall into the end zone. They haven't been running the ball a whole bunch down there in Houston, so that does concern me. We need him to get a touchdown in order to pay off. Play that I like even more is Antonio Gibson at $5,100. And we've heard about the rumors of Ramondre Stevenson, who has like 15 fumbles on the season, possibly taking a back seat to Antonio Gibson. Now, Alex Van Pelt, the offensive coordinator for the New England Patriots, comes from the Cleveland Browns, where Jerome Ford and Nick Chubb were getting used and abused in the backfield, so we know they want to run the ball and they want to hammer it home the entire game. Play good defense, run the ball down your throat. So if Antonio Gibson's going to be the number one guy, we know he's going to get a lot of touches, plus he has big receiving upside. At $5,100, we've already seen games of 11 points and 10 points. Now being the main guy, potentially, we could definitely see an uptick in number of carries. I would love Antonio Gibson to get into the 15 to 20 point range. I think he's certainly capable of doing that. And in a game style where we want to get 3 to 4 times our value at $5,000, if we're getting 15 to 20 points, that speaks good things for us. Again, I know this is nothing groundbreaking if you've been reading the headlines, but I really do like Antonio Gibson this week at $5,100. Now, the last play I'm keeping an eye on, again, I don't necessarily love these guys under $5,500, but if you need value, these are where I'm looking at. The last one is Alexander Mattison at $5,200. And it plays a part because he has been getting more touches, and Zamir White actually didn't participate in practice yesterday. I get it. It's a Denver defense that ranks 12th against the rush, and they have been playing way better than I anticipated. In the offseason, they lost a couple of pieces, including Justin Simmons, Josie Jewell, and now Alex Singleton goes out with his torn MCL, which he played an entire game through, by the way. I get a paper cut, and I'm trying to call out of work. But Alexander Mattison has earned his fair share of touches, and if Zamir White is going to miss time, this number should be at least double this amount of usage. Luke Getsy, the offensive coordinator for the Raiders, is another guy who likes to run the ball. He comes from Chicago, where they have a very bad run scheme. So that's not the most effective offense, but they want to run the ball first and then pass it. Even though their best weapons are Devontae Adams and Brock Bowers, they run their offense a little bit backwards, which is an advantage for us if we play Alexander Mattison. I've talked about some of these guys already. Derrick Henry is in a fantastic spot against the Cincinnati Bengals. Probably my favorite play of the day. That offensive line plus Mark Andrews has been leading him to a 33, 38-point season. Even at 35 years old or whatever Derrick Henry is, he has not lost a step. Justice Hill gets to come in and give him a little extra juice when he needs to just rest up, but he hasn't really been doing much resting. Over the last 2 weeks, he has a combined 49 carries for close to 350 yards. I don't understand how he's human. It's crazy to me that he's performing at this high of a level still. I mentioned it earlier, Kyren Williams going up against Green Bay Packers. I think this is a good play. The Packers giving up 109 yards per game on the ground. Kyren Williams, I believe, has a touchdown in 4 straight games, at least a touchdown in 4 straight games, including a 3-touchdown game here against San Francisco. That's a game where they had to come from behind, so there's never a chance for them to abandon the run, even if they are playing from behind against Green Bay. Maybe you think the whole world is going to be on Green Bay, and you want to fade them. The reason the Rams win this game is because they put it in the hands of Kyren. Now, again, I would probably prefer to pay up the $200 to get Derrick Henry, but I still think Kyren Williams at $7,600 is a strong play. Travis Etienne against Indianapolis, no thank you at this point. Kenneth Walker, to me, is a really, really good play as long as he is healthy. He is still dealing with that oblique injury from a few weeks ago, but in the 2 games that he's played, he's absolutely crushed it with 21 and 33 points. It is a pass-happy offense where he's getting touches out of the backfield as well in the passing game, but he is a dominant runner, so I do like Kenneth Walker. James Cook, yes, I think he has some upside with no Khalil Shakir. James Cook might get an additional touch or two. Devon Achane, no thank you. But Jordan Mason, in a game where a lot of their weapons returned to be healthy, he had probably his best game ever against a pretty good New England defense. They finally had weapons like Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, and a Brandon Ayuk, if you want to still consider him a weapon, able to spread the defense out wide, and Jordan Mason at $7,400 this week. Jordan Mason is probably going to have a very similar situation going up against an Arizona Cardinals defense that ranks 27th against the run. I don't just like Jordan Mason, I love Jordan Mason. At $7,400, it only saves me a little bit of money from Derrick Henry, still my favorite play. But if you need those ownership projections as we come down to the wire and it comes close to kickoff, that's why you need to be on Rotowire. I know it says MLB here, but we have the projections for how many people are going to be rostering them in the NFL. Slightly off screen, I'm just too lazy to fix it. If you do want to save a little bit of money from those high-end guys because you can't afford to just jam them in there this week, Josh Jacobs against the Rams. Again, Josh Jacobs has been getting a decent amount of involvement. 0 touchdowns on the season. I think that changes this week against the Rams. Another play that I do like, and you've heard me talk about him every week. I know I'm a Panthers fan, so I say it with that asterisk, but 2 straight games, 100-plus yards. Coach Dave Canales says he is adamant that he wants to run the ball first, establish the run, then get into the passing game. A 30-point performance and a 25-point performance over the last 2 weeks is really, really strong from him. My concern is the Bears defense is still a pretty good defense. And finally, Trey Sermon. I know it, you know it, everyone's talking about it. He isn't super effective in the run, but you're going up against a Jacksonville Jaguars team that has a horrible defense with Noah Allaqcess up the middle. I look for the Colts to obviously run the ball with Trey Sermon. That's if Jonathan Taylor, who's not expected to play, doesn't play. Now, I know we're running a little bit tight on time. This one's taking a little bit longer to get through the running backs. If you want to take your time and read through the article and go above and beyond in support of the channel, we always have our Patreon. I don't talk about it much, but it's down in the description below. We give you our late bloomers, our player pool, our fantasy rankings, and our starting 5. Those are the 5 guys that we want in our lineup and then kind of a pool of players to play around with. And we crushed it last week once again. We give you the weather. We talk about some injuries that are questionable, doubtful, guys that are out that are going to impact our lineups. Who gets a slight bump in these situations? Our late bloomers, the player rankings I talked about, our player pool. So these are the guys that we're considering putting into our final lineup. And then finally, my lineup featuring the guys in bold that I absolutely love. Nico Collins being one of the highest point scorers last week was on there. Marvin Harrison was there. Amari Cooper getting that 80-yard touchdown called back was a burner for us. Jaden Reed made the list last week. We still did really well, but that's an option for you as well. If you want to go above and beyond in support of the channel, that Patreon is linked down in the description below. That comes out Sunday morning around 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock Eastern time. So if you just want to read in bed because you don't want me to whisper you sweet nothings in bed, feel free to read the article. Craft your own lineups, but I'll let you get a little bit more insight into all the information you need right there Sunday morning. And thank you to those of you already in support of the channel going above and beyond. So wide receivers under $5,500. Courtland Sutton going up against the Las Vegas Raiders. I really do like this play. He's getting more involvement over the last 2 weeks. If you want to include week 1 getting 12 targets, sure. But Bo Nix has looked his way a little bit more. And in the red zone, he is getting a decent amount of target volume in the red zone as the only real red zone receiving threat. Going up against the Raiders, who might be without Devontae Adams once again, I think that means a couple of extra drives for the Broncos. Plus, that defense has been better than expected. I look for them to play on the short field. Give me Courtland Sutton at $5,500 to pay off in value. Dontavian Wicks at $5,000 down here near the bottom of the screen. No Christian Watson. Possibly no Romeo Doubs dealing with personal issues. They think he's going to be back for Sunday, but could miss times. So if that's the case, then that means it's Jaden Reed, Dontavian Wicks, Bo Melton, and then Tucker Kraft at the tight end position as your main receiving threats going up against a Rams defense that has given up some big plays, big yardage throughout the season. Last week without Christian Watson, Dontavian Wicks crushed it on only 5 catches, 78 yards, and 2 touchdowns. That's insane to me. For a guy seemingly to come out of nowhere 3 or 4 times this season over the past year and a half, Dontavian Wicks is about as explosive as it gets when he's in the lineup. So if I'm playing Jordan Love, I want either Jaden Reed or Dontavian Wicks, possibly both because of the $5,000 price tag right here. in my lineup. And I know I'm not the only one talking about him, so I'm not going to go too far in depth into it. We talked about him last week, and I'm jumping back into the XL pool. Give me Xavier Legette with 10 targets last week. Deontay Johnson is certainly the star wide receiver on the Carolina Panthers offense, but going up against the Bears, I think they kind of umbrella cover him. By the way, Deontay Johnson leads the league in red zone targets on this putrid Carolina Panthers team. They somehow have made enough trips to the red zone for Deontay Johnson to get 9 targets in the red zone. Now, Jacoby Myers is priced up to $5,500, and he's probably going to get Patrick Surtain in this game, which means someone isn't going to get him, and that someone would be Trey Tucker at $4,100. 6 targets last week, 9 targets the week before against the Carolina Panthers, 22 points, 15 points. Now, if he's able to get into the end zone and get us another 22-point game at $4,000, that is massive for us. I've already talked about how good this defense for the Broncos can be. If the Raiders are playing from behind, they're going to have to throw the ball. If there's no Devontae Adams at $4,100, I think Trey Tucker is a killer value. And then over the last 2 weeks in this Colts offense, whether it was Anthony Richardson or Joe Flacco throwing the ball, Alec Pierce has kind of taken a back seat to Josh Downs, whom I'm absolutely love coming out of the University of North Carolina a few years ago. 5 targets 2 weeks ago, fully healthy 9 targets last week, 22 points when he fell into the end zone, 10-yard average target or average catch. I like Josh Downs at $5,100. Josh Downs can get it done if Joe Flacco is under center. Sure, he's a decent play with Anthony Richardson, but I don't see 9 throws coming his way. It would be more like 5. Guys at the top, Jamar Chase getting paired up against Marlon Humphreys probably. I like it. Nico Collins. What an absolute tear Nico Collins has been on, man. A 20, a 30, a 12, a 36. Also a good play. Again, that Buffalo defense pretty good against wide receivers. Tyreek Hill, no thank you. The Patriots always seem to have his number, and he doesn't have a quarterback that can really get the ball to him right now. Marvin Harrison Jr. against San Francisco, a play from behind game. So, yeah, Marvin Harrison Jr. has a real advantage to me. Malik Neighbors out, so I know I didn't talk about it, but under $5,500, Darius Slayton and Wan'Dale Robinson, both really good plays as well. The problem is Devon Witherspoon for Seattle probably going to lock them down. So I look for targets, but not a lot of yards after the catch. Devontae Adams, questionable still. DK Metcalf, questionable. I expect him to play against that Giants defense. So I do like DK Metcalf. Deebo Samuel at $6,800 to me is a very good play. It's his cheapest price point, tied for his cheapest price point of the year at $6,800. Again, Arizona we know is capable of scoring if they keep this game close, which they possibly could. San Francisco is going to have to keep the ball open, keep the ball throwing, keep them off balance and playing complementary football. I think Deebo Samuel gets a few additional looks this week. DJ Moore is interesting, but Jaden Reed, that Green Bay wide receiver, once again, just keeps calling my name, and I know I'm not the only one on him, so I say that with an asterisk. Jalen Reed is a really, really good play to me. And then in this range from Jaden Reed down, I think is a really good pocket of wide receivers. Zay Flowers going up against Cincinnati. Cincinnati, again, that defense has not really been able to get off the field over the past few weeks. His target share has gone down pretty substantially because of the success of Derrick Henry. They didn't really have to throw the ball a whole bunch. If you think Cincinnati's going to keep this game close, Zay Flowers should get his opportunities once again. Amari Cooper, still seeing good volume. Got that big play called back last week. 9 targets, 8 targets, 12 targets, 8 targets. Just not really converting because of Deshaun Watson at this point. That's kind of a disappointment, but an interesting play if he's able to convert. Terry McLaurin on the other side of the ball, 23 and 18 over the last 2 weeks. That comes 2 weeks after he said, I don't really mind that I'm not the focal point, somehow has become the focal point. T. Higgins comes back 2 weeks ago. Last week, his first fully healthy week, 10 targets. J.C. Horn was matched up against Jamar Chase for the majority of the game. Jamar Chase had one really big play to save his day, but T. Higgins was getting it done with 6 receptions. Needs to fall into the end zone for him to pay off that $6,000 price point. But no Khalil Shakir here for Buffalo, so look the way of Keon Coleman, Curtis Samuel, and even Dalton Kincaid. But finally, Brian Thomas Jr. at $5,900. No, he's not a stud, but he's above $5,500. And if he keeps getting the targets that he's gotten over the last 2 weeks, in a game that I do not expect the Jaguars to somehow blow Indianapolis out of the water, I'm sure it's certainly going to be a close game because the Jaguars defense has been that atrocious. I think Brian Thomas Jr. has a chance to have a good game. At $6,000, if we're able to get 15 points, which he's basically done 2 times, I'm happy with that. That's almost 3x his value. If we get a repeat performance like he did last week against a team that ranks 31st against the rush and 25th against the pass, that is a very soft Indianapolis Colts defense, Brian Thomas Jr. can take the top off. Christian Kirk would even have my consideration. leading the team with 10 targets and 12 targets over the last 2 games. Trevor Lawrence finally looks comfortable throwing to him, but I'm sure since I'm considering him, if I put him into my lineup, we are going to get this 0-point performance. I am team never pay up for my tight end. I love to get a guy who can save me some money. So do I like Trey McBride when healthy? Yes. Do I like George Kittle when healthy? Yes. Brock Bowers? Yes. It's obvious that the guys at the top are decent for their value. Evan Ingram, if he's healthy, I do like that play a lot. Cole Kmet against the Carolina Panthers. Again, I've already talked about how bad their linebacker situation is. Cole Kmet, I do like him as a matchup nightmare against the Carolina Panthers and whoever's running over the middle of the field for that team. Mark Andrews, more of an offensive tackle at this point. No, thank you. Hunter Henry against Miami would be consideration. Colby Parkinson, this is probably the game he goes off. Tucker Kraft, I know everyone's talking about him. I know we're talking about Green Bay a whole lot in this one. But if Romeo Doubs and Christian Watson are both missing this game, Jordan Love is going to spread the ball. And one last time, can we give it up for Zach Ertz, old 33-year-old Zach Ertz coming out here and beating Ben Sinnott out for the starting tight end job. We've already talked about it. There's no real focal point, although Terry McLaurin looks like he's him over the last 2 weeks once again. Consistently getting about 4 targets a game, which is kind of all you need. If he gets 4 catches for 20 yards and falls forward at $3,800 and we're getting 8 to 10 points for him every single week, I'm okay with that. As a guy who loves to play 50-50s and double ups and I want a higher floor, I know and I'm confident Zach Ertz is going to get some touches. Again, he's never going to put up Travis Kelce or Dallas Goedert numbers, but he's going to get me at least 8 points. Now, if we start with this, again, this isn't an official lineup, but these are just guys that we talked about in this video that I do like. I may pay down from Chuba Hubbard just because there is volume for Trey Sermon, Alexander Madison, etc. But if we just go with this and we go with a $5,000 wide receiver, Jerry Jeudy we talked about for a second, Xavier Legette, Josh Downs, we'll put him in for now going up against a 28th ranked passing defense. We'll put him in there. So what does that leave us in the $7,000 flex range? Well, quite a few weapons, actually. It's going to give us a look at James Cook with limited weapons going up against the Houston Texans, DK Metcalf against a softer Giants defensive back situation in a game without Malik Neighbors, where the Seattle Seahawks could have additional touches. Joe Mixon, if healthy, going up against Buffalo, a 32nd ranked defense that we just saw get mauled by Derrick Henry. Stephon Diggs as a valuable piece. Kenneth Walker in a play from a head game against the New York Giants. If he's healthy, he's absolutely dominated his games. Deebo Samuel going up against the Arizona Cardinals. There's a lot of choices out here. Again, if you take one of these two guys, it leaves you a little bit of room to improve from Josh Downs or Tucker Kraft. Or you drop Kenneth Walker into the top, and here's your pocket of $6,000 players that you could choose from. I appreciate you watching. If you've already made it this far in the video, thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. Give it a thumbs up and drop down in the comments below who is your lock of the week. Who is the number 1 player on your radar that you cannot go forward without? Y'all take care, and hopefully the next time that I see you is down in the comments and in the green this weekend.